Welcome to In Other News, the unpredictable show where I cover some stories the corporate media isn't, or shine a light on an important angle they're obscuring. Today, we're looking at the Sixth Circuit Court's decision yesterday to coin an incoherent novel term for the express purpose of fabricating a legal justification for hate crimes. This impacts more than trans people, so stick around. If you're new here, my name is Ember, and I do these kinds of shows opportunistically. But I also do a much more chill morning show every weekday at 11 a.m. Eastern. Subscribe if you're interested in this or that, or any of the other stuff I do. These shows are intentionally short, so people might actually watch them later and get the information they need. I'm working on how to make them more interactive, to take questions and such. But for now, we're focusing on getting the information out and then stopping so people can access it. If you want to support what I'm doing here, there are lots of options in the description. Now, the Sixth Circuit Court. By now, most of you know the tagline offered by the media. Federal court allows bullying, but only against trans students. Let's take a look at what the court actually said and why their so-called reasoning is not just stupid, but creates a dangerous precedent for every American. This is short, so let's just go over it, then break it down after. I'll just bring it up here so y'all can follow along if you are so inclined and can see. An Ohio public school district bars its students from referencing to transgender and non-binary classmates using the pronouns that match their biological sex, if the classmates prefer to go by different pronouns. The plaintiff in this case has parent and student members who believe that a person's sex is immutable. Cool. The members want to express this view by using biological pronouns. And they believe that they would convey a falsehood that a person's gender is fluid, or a gender's person is fluid, I suppose. Live broadcasting, folks, if they use preferred pronouns. So the plaintiff challenged the school district's speech ban on behalf of its members under the First Amendment's free speech clause. This case about pronouns pits two important interests against each other. On the one hand, the school district has prohibited speech, biological pronouns, that expresses a message on a matter of pressing public concern. And because the district requires the other speech, the correct pronouns, that express a competing view, it has discriminated based on its students' viewpoints. Its approach thus raises serious free speech concerns. On the other hand, the school district rightly responds that it has a duty to protect all students, including transgender and non-binary students, from bullying and harassment. And this protection, while necessarily restricting speech, does not violate the free speech clause. So which of these competing concerns should prevail in this case? The Supreme Court's cases provide a clear answer. A school district may not restrict personal speech on matters of public concern unless the speech would materially and substantially disrupt school activities or infringe on the legal rights of others in the school community. Citation. In this case's current posture, the school district has fallen far short of meeting this demanding standard. It introduced no evidence that the harassment of students would disrupt school functions or qualify as harassment. Our society continues to debate whether biological pronouns are appropriate or offensive, just as it continues to debate many other issues surrounding transgender rights. The school district may not skew this debate by forcing one side to change the way it conveys its message or by compelling it to express a different view. We thus reverse and remand, yada, yada, yada. Now, there's a few things to call attention to here. First of all, this blanket assertion that a person's identity is a matter of public concern. But never mind that. We've got bigger fish to fry. So, biological pronouns. Keen observers will note that there's nothing biological about the English language, or any language, but that all parts of speech are constructed artifacts, tools for communication. One might as well say a biological hammer or a biological shovel. Pronouns, for the red hats in the audience, are just words that substitute in for proper nouns. They include I, me, my, you, yours, it, and so on, as well as the he, she, they y'all get so worked up about. Ember uses pronouns, so Ember doesn't have to say Ember every time Ember refers to Ember or any other person or people collectively. They are exactly as biological as your name is. It's just sounds humans make or symbols we write down to indicate the person, place, thing, or idea we're referring to with the other sounds or symbols around those ones. But don't get distracted by having failed first grade language arts. The incoherent term the court invented and threw into an opinion isn't even the biggest problem with this ruling. The case they cited, Tinker versus Des Moines, is a well-known case. It's where the famous decision, often paraphrased as "the Constitution does not end at the schoolhouse gate," comes from. This case was about students wearing black armbands to express solidarity with the people protesting the war in Vietnam. In that case, the school tried to stifle the free expression of the students by fabricating a pretext that such displays would cause substantial disruption in the learning environment. The same pretext used to send girls home for wearing tops that reveal too much shoulder to this very day. But never mind that issue for now. In Tinker, the school was not able to demonstrate the display was causing a disruption, merely that there was a fear that it might. The Supreme Court said that isn't good enough. You can't ban stuff just because you don't like it. You have to be able to show there's a real harm. So first of all, in yesterday's decision, the Sixth Circuit wrongly equivocated people's lives with political positions, but Tinker doesn't apply here for another reason. There is demonstrable harm. The only reason for bullying students, regardless of whether they're trans or brown or Christian or whatever, is to do harm. It's entirely harmful, always, and on purpose. That's not just a matter of definition either. Here's a website called stopbullying.gov. It displays, despite the current administration, it still contains factual information about the impacts of bullying on both the victim and the aggressor. It is harmful. It also evidently disruptive. Every single person who's gone through public schools has personally observed how disruptive one student bullying another can be. But also, the court refers to a policy whose only effect is to prevent bullying as discrimination. This is a novel interpretation of that term in a legal context. Discrimination in a legal context typically refers to the unfair treatment of people based on a characteristic of the target. Denial of access to healthcare because you happen to be a gay person, or housing because you happen to be Black, for example. Discrimination is not a restriction of your ability to harass people because they possess a certain characteristic you would like to discriminate against. Harassment, incidentally, is typically held to refer to unwelcome conduct based on a certain characteristic. Sex, incidentally, is specifically enumerated as a protected characteristic at both federal and state levels. What the court is doing here is reversing the meaning of discrimination, saying the real discrimination is preventing harassment based in discrimination. The impact of this isn't limited to just trans kids being legally harassed. By the decree of this ruling, anytime a person can wrap any kind of bigotry into the language of "I believe for religious reasons," they can get away with nearly anything. This isn't only the asinine creation of a legal term that makes no sense, biological pronouns. The bigger issue beneath is the precedent that people can assert any kind of harmful, hurtful, or hateful idea that somebody somewhere might consider under debate or socially contested. Never mind what's morally right or wrong, factually right or wrong, just the disagreement over the matter makes it fair game to express not just an opinion over, but to justify hate and harmful actions. Think brown people are subhuman for religious reasons? According to the Sixth Circuit, calling them It is to be encouraged, or just calling them savages, maybe even assaulting them. That's all just fine. We mustn't infringe on the free speech of bullies, even if what they're doing is harmful, clearly disruptive, and factually wrong. Think saying the earth is a globe is being compelled to convey a falsehood for religious reasons? That's the wording in this ruling. Good news! You now get to shout at teachers about how the planet is actually a pancake because your book with the talking snake said so. Fun fact, while the book with the talking snake does say the earth is flat, it doesn't mention trans people at all. But why let details like facts get in the way now? Our society continues to debate many issues, such as whether women should be allowed to vote, or whether medicine is more effective than magic, or whether the moon landing is real. You're entitled to have immoral or factually incorrect beliefs about these things, but you aren't allowed to hurt other people over your own stupidity. The court stating that the school may not skew these debates by compelling students to express views that comport with reality, like evolution being an observable fact or the earth orbiting the sun, is not reasonable or rational. But even if we as a nation decide to abandon the concept of facts being real entirely, as this ruling seems to be stating, and this is not ground that any of us should be willing to cede, this ruling skips right over that to attack the foundation of the social contract directly. To be clear, if somebody wants to hate you and wants to hurt you, they now have carte blanche to do so in the Sixth Circuit's jurisdiction, as long as they can come up with a justification post hoc that fits into this ridiculously broad reinterpretation of free speech. Under this ruling, bullies can attack teachers as long as they can come up with some kind of religious sounding justification where being civil might be made to sound like they're being forced to convey a falsehood. Women should be silent. That's from the Bible, for example. Sorry, women teachers. Kids in the Sixth Circuit can shout over you all day, every day. It isn't disruptive. The court said so. Biologically, teachers who are brown people, under some religious interpretations, you're afflicted by the curse of Ham. So you'll just have to put up with racist harassment because the court has ruled it isn't disruptive. Biologically. And if the teachers are going to have a hard time, won't you people for once actually think of the children? How are kids supposed to survive in such an environment, to say nothing of learning? How can we live under any kind of rule of law when the law itself takes a stand against the well-being of human lives in favor of those who wish to do harm and lose nothing by being prohibited from doing so? How can we have any kind of civilization when children aren't just stripped of the protection of the most basic form of decency, their own name and identity, but are actively offered up on the altar of hate to not merely appease aggressors, but entice further aggression? There's more that could be said, like discrimination requiring you to actually lose out on something, like the way the ruling began, not with a plain recounting of the facts of the case, but a politically loaded reinterpretation, a prevarication to set the stage for the mutilation of our laws. Or that the ruling is self-contradictory by invoking the legal rights of others, such as protection from harassment, then states a conclusion contradictory to that premise they themselves presented. For example, but as I said at the start, these shows are intentionally short. I'll let y'all stew on that. Feel free to rewatch this as many times as you need to. I realize I used some big words there, so I'll include a link to a dictionary in the description for the MAGA folk. Peace. Thanks to all our patrons and top-level members for October. Miranda, Karen Butcher, Jessica the Transmetal Alchemist, Robin Webster, Maya Adkison, Jimmy Tux, Ian Chen, Kalasia, Lilith, The Barely Bearable Atheist, Eric Wander, Jason Jacoby, Godless Engineer, Jester, Lil of All Trades, Deviant Outcast, and Kelly King, the Detroit Atheist Queen. And you can add your name here next month by signing up at patreon.com/betterthanember, or by joining Emberships here on YouTube at the Cinder level, which includes all the custom emojis, tons of member-exclusive content, member-only live streams, and a bunch of other stuff. I deeply appreciate all the supporters who keep this channel going. Thank you all so much. Because of you, we're building a wonderful community that I'm very proud of.
Just like a spark that's breaking out, can't make a stop, can't turn